The red light on the camera.
I thought that was a green light.
Traditionally, that means that it's recording. But
I am colorblind.
Do say a few things. Say some words so I can.
Hello.
All right,
hello.
that's good. So, I'm not exactly sure what we're doing here.
Talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not sure. Are we back, or are we like? Or are we? Is this one of our filler episodes?
Well, why don't we say that each episode we do is official, and I want to say we're back because I'm feeling like we can do this every other week. Don't you?
Every other week, I think we can do it. Next week is going to be impossible for me because I have a high school graduation.
Yeah.
I have a 6th grade graduation, like you.
Yeah.
And other things.
Here's what I think we should do.
Oh, and Monday. I'm sorry.
Go on.
Monday is Juneteenth.
Yes.
I don't know how you're celebrating.
I'm celebrating by closing my office.
Oh, my office is also closed. This has become a thing.
It took some wrangling with the owner, but ultimately, reasonability won out.
Did you see that store in Indianapolis that put together a watermelon salad for Juneteenth? And then put it out like I mean,
unfortunate.
This is the United States of America, right? Like, are we?
Jesus.
I mean,
they probably thought it was a great idea too. That's the scary part.
Yeah. I mean, shit.
Yeah.
America is what a country.
What a country. So here's my thought on how we proceed with the shows.
Okay.
All right. So every other week from here on out.
Yeah.
But as we get into a groove and as things calm down a bit in the summer, I say as we go, maybe we can pop in an extra show, and we just try. But we'll make a promise to get back on an every other week schedule, and because I miss doing this. I love the Monksters. I love Mike. I love being here. It helps me stay sober, and I just don't want to. I don't want to stop.
Okay.
All right.
We're not going to stop.
All
what
right.
we're going to do is
smoke weed every day.
Yeah. We're back.
And we're back. Welcome to Recovery in the Middle Ages, the podcast about two middle-aged suburban dads and their pursuit of life, love, and recovery. I'm Nat X.
And I'm Mike, not looking at my outline because it's here somewhere. Go ahead. Just go. And hold it. You're blocking the camera.
And boy, do we have a show for you today on RMA.
Oh, here we go.
After a much-needed recess, RMA returns for its 86th episode.
86. Holy shit.
We discuss Drinkers Like Me by Adrian Chiles and wonder aloud if monoclonal antibody treatment for COVID may help addiction. All this and more today on a very, very special edition of RMA.
You know why it's special, Nat?
Why?
Because we haven't done this in a while.
Yeah.
And it was great seeing you walk in through the door and have the dogs bark at you.
It's great.
And I fed you a couple of tacos because Aaron is always like, when Nat comes over, he always looks really hungry. We should. Do you think we should offer him some food? And I'm like, I don't know if he would eat the food. And today we're like, do you want a taco? You're like, would I?
Well, I actually have, it's been well documented, my fluctuations in weight. And I'd actually...
You're like a Hollywood starlet.
Yeah, but I've actually gained 10 pounds back. So I had gotten down way too low. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a little more plump.
Plump is not a word I would use to describe you right now.
A little plumper than usual, but I wanted to share with everyone what my diet was.
You're skinnier than Amber Turd.
Amber Turd.
Sorry.
Dropping a grumpy. And... So my diet.
So what is your diet?
Well, to gain weight, because I got so many comments about how thin I looked, and I was so, I don't know, sensitive about when I used to be, active addiction. I was extremely skinny, so I didn't want anyone.
Diet of heroin and cigarettes will do that.
It really did. And, I was down to like 130.
And cocaine.
The cocaine, yeah. If
it's an appetite suppressant.
That's what I hear.
Yeah,
it is an appetite suppressant. But
although
what?
I'm sorry. Listen to me just talking over you. When I was doing a lot of cocaine, I was at my fattest because I was drinking so much beer.
Yeah.
It was just, my diet was beer and cocaine and cigarettes.
They used to, heroin addicts too, that I used to see, would be extremely skinny. And we always wondered, listening to the Howard Stern show, Artie Lang had a well reported on heroin habit, and they would always make the joke like he's the one guy to get addicted to heroin and get fatter. But I lost weight in a sober way because I was a number of reasons. So I wanted to gain weight to get my mother-in-law off my back and my father, the two of them with my weight. And I started eating flying saucers from Carvel twice a night. So I would have one before bed, and then when I wake up to go to the bathroom, as I frequently do, I would have another one at around 2 a.m.
Oh.
And in just 1 month, folks, I gained 10 pounds.
You may not live till you're 50, but it's a great diet.
Hey, I didn't plan on living past 30, so we're still doing good.
Yeah, me either, but here we are.
Who is the episode brought to them by?
Oh, right. Now that we're back, you guys should all go back over to the Recovery in the Middle Ages Patreon and sign up. And you can support your friendly neighborhood podcast by pledging to send us a couple of bucks every month. I think it starts at $3 and it goes up from there. I think Kyle got his mug yesterday.
Yes. There's merchandise.
You get a mug or something, depending on the level you buy into. After 3 months, is it, of regular support, you will be sent a small token of appreciation, either something to drink your coffee with rum in it, or a sticker that you can put on your guitar case or on your, what's this thing called?
A computer.
A computer. You can put it on your computer. So Patreon, of course, is a members-only subscription service that you sign up for, and you get the secret codes that Nat will send you that will let you into the Discord server where you can have
chatting.
There are exchanges between us and the Monksters and other Monksters, and we keep adding discussion topic threads to the chat. There's like 20 of them now, so there's something there for everyone.
And they get preferential treatment when it comes to reading things from the Monksterverse.
Yes.
We typically read the stuff on the Inner Sanctum first, just as a perk, and we have some of that today.
Yes, and you also get videos, more videos than the regular folks on the Facebook group get.
Yeah, it didn't sort of work out the way I originally intended the video thing to work, but I think we've got a pretty good, like right now we're starting to videotape every show, so we do bonus content there.
Hopefully. I don't know if this camera's going to work. It's new.
This may not be bonus content, but that's our intention in any case.
See, I was thinking, though, after a while of having people on the Discord have it, on the Patreon, we could release it like to the Facebook group.
Yeah.
Should we do that?
I think that would be good.
Because there's some old stuff that we can put up there.
Yeah, I mean, we did a bunch of videos.
We love the Facebook people, too. I mean, it's not, you don't have to give us money to listen to the show. The show will always be free.
Yes, we don't do this for the money, but we do have
Definitely
costs.
Don't do it for the money.
And it's really cool, like on the, what we can do on the Discord server that we can't do as much on the Facebook is there's not as many people, so we can really chat and get to know each other, and it's a great support group.
Yeah. So that's patreon.com/recovery in the Middle Ages. Go there to learn more and to sign up.
I had one thing I wanted to say.
Okay.
Welcome to all the Monksters listening stateside, around the world, down the street, across the table, and right next door. Welcome all. Settle in, buckle up, and get ready for excitement, comedy, tragedy, intrigue, mystery, and so much more. Where can they find us, Mike?
I believe they can find us at middleagesrecovery.com and while you're there, check out our hot new SSL certificate that I think we renewed. Have we renewed it?
I renewed it. I paid for it, and then something has to be updated, and I can't get my web developer in Calcutta to help me.
What's he up to anyway? Has he disappeared?
He hasn't completely disappeared, but I tried to get on the chat service with Setgo SSL certificates to help me configure it. Maybe you know how to do that.
Those are all words, but I don't know what they mean.
So I'm working on it, but we did pay it. It's not because we didn't pay it.
Okay, so don't go there for now. If you want to buy a T-shirt, I mean, somebody must want to buy a T-shirt, right? Just email me at mikeR@middleagesrecovery.com, and I will tell you how to get me money, and I will send you your T-shirt forthwith.
We may just end up giving them all away.
I think. Well, don't tell people that.
I mean,
they
we'll
won't buy
never
one.
do that. I take that back. We will never give these away. You should definitely buy one.
I mean, we should either give them away or somebody should buy them before my dog discovers the box and pees on it.
Agreed.
All right.
They're nice shirts. It's cool design. The great Jeff D. Was the designer.
Yeah.
And
so if you don't want to find us on the website, or you can't because our SSL certificate is still not operational, you can find us on Facebook. Just search Middle Ages Recovery or Recovery in the Middle Ages. We're there. There's a public page. Join the public page, then make a request to join the private page, and it's all good. All right. We have weekly RMA recovery meetings chaired by the great G Money Smooth, and occasionally chaired by Elizabeth from Boston, and occasionally chaired by
is that Queen Elizabeth?
That is, of course, that is the RMA Queen, by Aaron, of course.
Of course.
The meetings have been kind of sparsely attended lately. I think last week it was just Corey and Elizabeth.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely petered out a little bit, but let's get back to it.
Petered?
Petered out.
It's petered out.
Do people say that anymore?
Maybe in the 1970s.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, but come back. It's a great support meeting. I definitely am going to start getting back to those as my church meetings wind down.
Do they wind down, or is salvation assured? We're moving on?
I think so.
I would like to switch the time of that meeting.
Okay. Well,
because it's the worst time.
Yeah.
In the middle of the day on a Sunday. Like, everybody's doing shit.
I'm feeling like a weeknight, like a Wednesday night at like 11:30 p.m.
No. How about like 8 when I'm in bed? The first one that we ever had was at 8 p.m.
I think that might work. Yeah. So let's talk.
Because that's 5 p.m. on the left coast.
So we'll talk to the powers that be, and
we are the powers that be. We just have to.
I can't push this off. And we'll maybe we'll do that and make it more convenient.
Great reviews.
Yeah, great reviews will be
read on the air, but you have to leave us one, and we didn't tell you how to do that. But you know how to do that because you use the internet. You know how to use the internet. Just go to the Apple machine and leave a review.
Yes.
The Apple, what do you call that thing?
Apple Podcast.
Apple Podcast.
iTunes, leave a review. You can even call in your story.
Oh, yeah. We still have that hotline. Still paying for that.
Yeah. We pay for that?
It's not much.
Okay.
It's actually, I don't think it's anything. You are holding the paper in front of your face.
516-888-6297. Why? I'm covering.
Do you want to borrow some reading glasses?
1.25 magnification?
I have 0.5.
0.5?
Yeah.
That's
it's
a half.
See. And we usually get so many great 5-star reviews. Everybody loves us, except
we got a bad one.
No, we got a listener email that was taking us to task. So
yes,
I would like to read this because I've been practicing.
Okay, yeah, this is a listener email. They send this. You can send it to Mike R at middleagesrecovery.com and have it right on the air.
I prefer the hate mail. It's more fun. Okay, email from a listener. Hello, Mike and Nat. I've been a listener, word spreader about your podcast, and 2-time 5-star rater. I follow you on Instagram. So far, so good, right?
He's a master rater.
Yes. And then, no clue, no hint, no nothing that you were going to take a break. You probably can't imagine what your faithful listeners thought. Boom, just gone. I'm like, oh shit, we're in trouble.
Yep.
Yeah. I understand with school obligations and work stuff that it wasn't feasible. You could have just said you were taking a break. We did on the Facebook, but then I started realizing how elitist it was for me to assume that all of our listeners also follow us on Facebook.
Yeah.
Some of them probably only follow us
just listening.
And
we didn't set it up.
And we didn't even put a 2-minute thing in the feed, and I apologize for that. I really do.
We should have done that.
We left you guys hanging, but in all fairness, this kind of came upon us suddenly, and we were both sort of at the tipping point between sanity and insanity, and so we just immediately, we were just protected our mental health and decided to just step back for a little bit.
It wasn't planned.
I apologize. Okay. So then you come back. I'm continuing reading the thing. Then you come back with a bonus episode. Yay. And you're going back and forth about how to simplify, but add more components. And you don't realize how many listeners and people were clamoring for you. I read that to my wife. I'm like, see, people are clamoring for us.
I think what they're saying here is I made a comment on our maybe the hiatus update where I said I didn't realize how many people were out there. And I think they're calling me arrogant for assuming people want to listen to us or something. Is that what this is?
Do you think it's sarcastic? I thought it was genuine.
Okay.
People are clamoring for us.
Yeah.
I like to think so anyway.
Yeah.
It massages my delicate ego. Speaking of which, I'm going to continue reading. Stop with the ego. Do the podcast or don't, but don't complain about that which you have freely chosen to do. Take care of yourselves. I love it, and thank you, listener, whose name I'm not going to read because you're going to yell at me again. Your point is well considered and well taken, and I appreciate you bringing that to my attention. The fact is, Nat and I are, despite all evidence to the contrary, Nat and I are not professional entertainers. We're just two idiots that happen to have some time on our hands during the pandemic, and we launched a recovery podcast. So we don't have it all put together. We don't have all the answers, certainly. And, we have these busy lives. So we don't want to stop doing the podcast because we can't do it every week. So we're just going to try and do the best we can going forward.
And one of the best things that came out of this podcast was we got to meet so many awesome people out there who I'll call them like-minded people.
Yes.
That's what I'm noticing when we get to know the people, the Monksters. I'm like, I feel like I've known these people my whole lives. We're on the same page. And so, we're definitely sorry. And I wish it had been
But
better.
don't yell at us. We were very sensitive.
Yes. Very sensitive.
Speaking of which, we got a really good review to switch things up.
All right, I'll read this one.
Yeah, go for it.
5 stars. The subject is thoughtful, provocative, and insightful recovery. Yeah. I've reviewed other recovery podcasts and have settled on this one as my go-to core support podcast.
Yeah.
As co-hosts Mike co-hosts Mike and Nat are highly intelligent, thank you, funny, thank you, and empathetic.
If she only knew. Highly intelligent.
They take you on a journey where you learn about them, yourself, and a multitude of metaphysical and science-based recovery strategies, ideas, and connections to help one stay sober. They don't condescend or preach down on a spiritual approach, but look at it as one component of a broader holistic program.
I like this person.
Yes, well written. They see...
I wonder if it's the same person.
Yeah, imagine. They see each recovery plan as individualized, and a la carte approach is encouraged. The show itself is engaging because there is plenty of discovery and reflection. The many guests, book, movie reviews, current events, and patron feedback keep it fresh and entertaining. Very often, you end a show with a greater sense of empowerment, confidence, and belief in oneself because the dots have been connected. 5 stars. Highly recommended. I love this review.
That's what we like to see. So if any of you out there are considering writing us a 5-star review, just use this as a template. Yeah. It's perfect.
Change the name at the bottom. But this is what I want from this podcast. I mean, this review hits on everything I always wanted this podcast to be. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Makes me feel better.
Thank you. And if you see any 1-star reviews in the next few weeks, they would be from the last person.
Yes.
Probably.
So, please don't.
Don't do that. But I mean, look, if you're pissed off, you're going to do it. What can I tell you?
Better to be pissed off than pissed on, I always say.
Do you always say that?
I do. It's done.
To who?
Whoever says pissed off, I always do that one. But
okay.
We have some soberversaries from the Inner Sanctum. I'm not going to read everything because I was just catching up on a few that we have a soberversary thread, and the big one is Melissa M celebrating 1 year sober.
Wow.
The other one was 8-Baller Rabba. Had 6 months sober on 5/25/22, so it's even more.
I'm just
now.
going to keep doing this in the background.
Allie P had 10 months sober on May 22nd.
That's awesome.
And the Queen, Liz B, had 15 months on May 2nd. So congratulations, and everybody else who's on the Inner Sanctum and posted your soberversary. Keep them coming. We're going to go to that more often, and we want to celebrate your recovery. It's such a great thing, and we're so happy we can be part of that.
You know, I crossed my own little threshold 24 days ago. I hit the 1,000-day
1,000
mark.
days.
Yes.
Man.
So that's the 4-digit mark.
Gonna have to cut off your thumb.
I'm going to have to cut that name out, too.
4-digit.
I'm going to call myself 4-digit Mike.
Oh, yeah.
From now on.
So that's amazing. You've got 1,000 days.
You get 1,000 days, and you get 1,000 days.
And
it is my fervent belief that all of you listening to this can get 1,000 days if you don't have it already. You can. It is not impossible.
No way.
I am living proof. Nat and I were
pretty bad shape.
Yes, and here we are, right, doing a recovery podcast. So you too can achieve your goals and dreams.
Yes, keep it up and keep letting us know about when you hit milestones, and we'll announce it.
Or put it on the Facebook page if you're not on the Patreon, and we'll still, celebrate it with you.
Absolutely. We have a segment we haven't done in a long time.
Oh.
Monksters.
What have they been up to? Let's take a peek. The segment we call Monksters Speak. Speak.
Part of me wonders whether we should update the music.
I don't know. I kind of like it, but we can.
Yeah, that's fine.
So yesterday, I made a post on the Inner Sanctum Discord. I said, tomorrow we'll record a new show and want to pose a question for our awesome Patreon Inner Sanctum Monksters to read. I shouldn't have read that part. Here it is. What has your experience been with trying to moderate your use of alcohol or drugs, including any rule setting you imposed on yourself? And go.
Do you want to go first? Did you ever set rules?
I was trying to think back because I was watching this video that we were going to talk about today, Drinkers Like Me, and it made me start to think back because it's been a while. But, I remember when I was really, really bad with cocaine, I think in the early 2000s, and it started to be a problem. Like I started to notice it,
Started to be a problem.
Yeah. Well, it started.
Cocaine's a problem from the first day.
Well, it started to like I was hiding it for a while. It was how when you first start doing something like that, it's like exciting and you sort of are managing.
Yeah,
it.
Sure do.
And then it really started to affect my life more outwardly. And I started to say like, okay, I'm going to just do an 8-ball a week now. I'm not just going to buy a gram a day. I'm going to go once a week 8-ball. And
like just a little bit every day, or just save it all up for Friday night?
It was going to be a little bit every day. I'd get an 8-ball on a Friday and just use it, like a gentleman. And every single time I ended up doing the whole thing in the night, and
of course
calling my guy at 5 a.m. hoping he would wake up. And so in that sense, moderation didn't work.
What kind of sick bastard tries to moderate cocaine use?
I bet you I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that tried to moderate
cocaine.
Cocaine.
I never even tried with cocaine because it was like...
Oh, I was deluding myself.
The first bit that goes in my body, I'm going to keep doing it until I run out of money, basically.
There was never a time I didn't regret it the next day. I don't know if any of you out there have been used cocaine and the next day we're like, yes.
Yeah, give it a try if you haven't. It's
no, don't give it a try. What do you do? Not give it a try.
Yeah, don't.
Regretted it every time. Now, moderating drinking, I definitely tried. Once it became a real problem, and once my wife, it's really a problem when your wife is like, no more drinking. Okay, that's when it became a problem. And then I kind of negotiated, well, maybe I'll just have 2 drinks. And I'm remembering, we would go out, with our friends. This is like 15 years ago, 14. And I would have 1 drink, and my wife would be watching. And then I'd have the second drink, and then she would give me a look.
Right.
And then I would
kind of
wait
sneak
it out,
the rest of them.
And then I would sneak the third. And it was like that. So I did not have luck moderating.
Yeah. For years I never moderated. And then when I started thinking I might have a problem. Well, my break in the 90s when I was sober for a couple of years there was at the tail end of a bad night of smoking crack and drinking. So there was no going from there to moderation. It was just stuff.
Okay, you just were like, yeah, better night of smoking crack and drinking.
Right. But I mean, that wasn't like, I didn't really have the internal wherewithal to be like, well, maybe I'll just smoke crack every other week and drink occasionally. No, I had to stop. Right. But then when I eased back into the drinking, left the crack behind, then after a little while, it became apparent that I needed to try and moderate. So I made the same rules that everybody else makes, right? Only on Friday and Saturday nights,
right?
Or Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, or Wednesday as well. And you know what? People in New York City go out on Tuesday, and if I'm going out Tuesday, I may as well go out on Monday. So it was getting to the point where like Sunday and maybe Monday were the only nights that I wasn't going out. So I couldn't do that. I couldn't do to me, the whole idea of going out and having one drink is
sounds like torture.
It's horrible. It's torture. It's ridiculous. And I've said this before. I would rather have none than one. Now, would I rather have none than two? I have to say, this documentary that we're going to talk about, this Drinkers Like Me, Adrian Chiles, kind of messed with my head a little bit because I started thinking, maybe it is possible to.
I did too. I did a little bit too. I didn't want to do it myself, but it did get me thinking because, we've always talked about this where we've since come away from it, but that there are people like me who can't have one because, one is too many and 1,000 isn't enough. And that there are people out there, let's say my wife, who can drink casually. Mm-hmm. And then so I've come to that belief that there are people who can moderate and enjoy it and have it not ruin their lives.
Yeah.
So I guess in the back of my mind, how much
fun it is, though.
I don't know.
To have a glass of wine.
And that guy in the documentary seemed to have fun at first.
Well, we'll get into that. Anyway, so that's me and Nat's experience. We should probably relay some of the Monksters experiences.
Who answered first?
G Money. Smooth. I thought he said yesterday at 9:15, but that's when that came in. Okay. G Money says, Grant says, I wouldn't be here if I had been successful with moderation. Here meaning RMA. I'm guessing the people who seek support from groups like this are similar. The sampling technique is going to skew the results, but I'm waiting to hear from the outliers, assuming there are any.
Me too.
But yes, this is we're for the most part an abstinent group, right?
Yeah, I think so. And it's not to say if you aren't abstinent, you can't hang out and we can't learn. We can learn something from everybody.
We have a few that are not,
And Jen D. Says, I promised myself and others that I would drink moderately more times than I can count. Might have worked once or twice, but always went right back to binging and even drinking more than before the attempts to moderate. I sometimes envy those who can do it. It's just not possible for me. And I've actually gotten used to being alcohol-free and proud of myself for sticking to it. Some days can be challenging, but I get by with a little help from my friends. RMA peeps.
Yeah.
Me too.
I should have queued that music up. I think the Beatles, though, have copyright.
Yeah.
Things.
Yep.
Queen Liz says, oh boy, let me count the ways. Only on weekends, only special events, 1 glass of water per glass of wine. I tried that for a while. I realized how much I dislike drinking water when I'm drinking wine.
Yeah.
Glass per water. Start later. Red wine, which I don't like, to slow down. Went to a moderation management group. Actually, a guy met me one-on-one at Starbucks. This was years ago when I was concerned that a half a bottle of wine a night was excessive. He almost laughed at me. Didn't I hear Mike say on the podcast that the founder of Moderation Management died driving drunk? You did indeed, Liz.
Indeed.
It might work for some, but I found ultimately drank more. Great quote. When I control my drinking, I don't enjoy it. When I enjoy drinking, I can't control it. Yep.
Yeah.
There's a whiz bomb.
The whiz bomb.
Is that what they call that? Kids call that.
Yeah, not Alan, the wizard of RMA says, moderation wasn't in my vocabulary.
Yeah. Is that all he said?
That's all he said.
Okay,
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Alan. Chris 57 says, like others, I also tried to create rules around my drinking and always broke them, usually on the first go. Once I had gone through the alcohol experiment, for those of you that don't know, the alcohol experiment is Annie Grace and This Naked Mind's entree into the world of This Naked Mind, and it's a 30-day...
The world of endless marketing to you to sign up again.
Yes. But, Annie Grace has done some good work for a lot of people. And
love Annie.
If it wasn't for Annie Grace, I wouldn't have gotten to go on her podcast.
Yeah.
I was very happy.
Me too.
Anyway, it's a 30-day thing. You can do it free or you can pay. And, it's sort of like a reset, right? It's so you can take a look at your relationship with alcohol and see where it might be problematic. So once I had gone through the alcohol experiment, I came to realize that there is no normal, and alcohol is unhealthy and destructive at any amount. After having been alcohol-free for an extended period of time, I drank in small quantities and found that even a single drink, hours before sleep, left me feeling like shit in the morning and relit some of the physical ailments that were caused by drinking. I gained more from not drinking than I ever did from imbibing. I really identify with everything he said there because, there were, times in the last few years where my drinking was down to, a few glasses of wine a night. And it didn't matter if it was 1 or 4. I tended to feel crappy the next day. Yeah. My sleep was fucked up,
Do you think some of that
heartburn, all the shit.
Do you think some of that has to do with, because over time, as you drink heavily, your liver does get damaged, and you'll hear from active alcoholics over years where they drink and they don't feel drunk. Mm-hmm. It's because it has something to do with your liver isn't processing the way it's supposed to, so you don't feel drunk, but it just continues to do damage. So the way you get alcohol effects changes as you get older and your body changes and you damage it.
See, I was kind of having the opposite experience.
Oh, yeah?
That it was like, I felt like my liver was tired, and because it was tired, like I would have one drink and I would be like kind of wasted after one drink. And I was like, that to me tells me more that my liver's like just throwing up its livery hands and going, fuck it.
I've heard that too, but I'm not sure. I think everyone is going to be different, and it's the way your body changes as you go, and how it metabolizes alcohol.
Yeah.
Allie P says, well, I took a year off from drinking, thinking I would be able to moderate after that. Took me over a year to get sober. Time off did nothing to help me moderate. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Allie.
That's a good reminder for those of us that may have been thinking after watching the documentary.
Yeah.
To stick one's big toe back in the water,
You go right back. I mean, that was my experience, and many people I've met in recovery have said the same thing. No matter how long you take off, you're right back to it. You start drinking again, and you're back to it.
Melissa says, moderation for me never made sense. I never wanted 1. I wanted at least 5. Yep. 100%. 100%.
So I think the takeaway is
moderation's bullshit.
Bullshit. No, look, there's got to be, and we'll talk more about this as we discuss.
That's our scientific analysis. Remember that reviewer who said we had all the latest scientific assessments and synthesis?
Bullshit.
It's bullshit.
Look, it didn't work for me. And this is what they say a lot in that documentary is even the people he's speaking to who are like in that recovery group, they still say like there are people out there.
That was a smart recovery group.
Yeah. And that's their stance, I guess, is that like, they're not saying, any amount is like deadly. I mean, I think that they're more kind of down the line, like, you know what? Some people, if you can enjoy it, they even said they were envious of people who can enjoy it. I'm not.
I feel like there was some selective editing that went on there, and perhaps some of the things that reinforced. Whoops. Looks like we got a little camera issue. I'm going to pop off and fix it, and we'll be right back after these words. I'm sure I was saying something profound before the technical difficulties, but
we were just wrapping up the Monksters Speak. So thank you guys for participating, and we're going to talk more about moderating and its efficacy, or even if it's possible, throughout the show.
By the power of recovery, I call on you, Monksters Speak.
Thank you.
They have spoken.
They have spoken, and that's from a Monkster.
Have spoken.
Isn't that a Monkster on the Inner Sanctum?
Yeah.
Which one? Do you remember?
Was it Kyle?
I think so, because he's the one with the recording software I was commenting on. Yeah, so thank you, Kyle, if it is indeed you. Life update. We haven't even caught up in a long time. Like we had that catch-up episode recently.
We did.
And thank you guys for bearing with us on that. The sound didn't turn out the way I liked.
Maybe we should let them know that you and I and our spouses had dinner the other night at an Italian restaurant.
That's right. We, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, and I hadn't seen you in a while from not doing the show. And I said, can't we just do a double date with Mike and Aaron? And my wife said, yeah, I think so. I said, okay, let's make it happen. And there's a new restaurant in town.
Yeah, it's good.
And we couldn't think of any two people we'd want to try a new restaurant out than with you two.
Oh, and thank you.
So we did.
Yes. It was a good restaurant. It was nice. The They didn't have too many alcohol-free options. But you and I probably killed 2 bottles of sparkling water.
Yeah.
2 big bottles.
Yep. They had and we kept asking for Pellegrino, and they had some other brand, and
when they make in the back,
yeah.
What do you call that thing?
Soda Stream.
Soda Stream.
Yeah. It was a good restaurant, and it's from. There's a guy whose name is Fabrizio. He opened up a really nice Italian bakery in our town, and he has another really nice bakery that's been around a long time in a neighboring town. And he is just spending money opening up Italian-related restaurants and bakeries.
Because there's one thing Long Island needs is more Italian food.
And I'm telling you,
we don't have quite enough.
But man, that gentleman can cook.
He can.
I thought that was a good meal. You had a very strange dessert. Which was like a truffle mushroom.
Yeah, truffle
dessert.
mushroom ice gelato.
Yeah.
Which is, about what it sounds like.
Yeah.
It really wasn't, it was conceptually, it was great. Artistically, It was beautiful. And it tasted like truffles. And I don't know if I want my ice cream tasting like truffles.
Yeah, so it's one of these restaurants where the chef is getting crafty.
But you had the tiramisu,
yes,
which looked like an amazing tiramisu.
The best I've ever had. Yeah. And that was really nice to catch up.
It was very nice to go out to dinner with another couple, because Erin and I are hermits. We don't, I don't know about you, but I've been finding it very difficult to sort of re-engage with the world at large after COVID has receded.
Yeah.
And I have to kind of force myself out, because I got very comfortable with everything not working or being closed, or I could use all that stuff as an excuse not to do anything.
Yeah. I went so far as to, and I'm ashamed to admit this, but even when big holidays came around, I almost would have an inner sigh of relief sometimes.
Me too.
And I felt so guilty about feeling that way, but I'm just such an isolator, and that's dangerous for me. So I have to force myself out.
See, I don't really feel like I have to force myself to socialize, because I don't know. It's so weird, man. The me that was before I stopped drinking was a much more social animal than the me that now. Right. In some ways, like once I get out, and I'm very comfortable. Like I was always, when I was drinking, I was always like a little anxious, because I was like either a little hungover, or I wasn't
you didn't
drunk
look nervous
yet, or
at dinner. We were comfortable.
Yeah, no, that was great. It was great, but it's like, with 2 years of the pandemic, I quit drinking at the end of the summer of 2019, and basically sort of hermitized myself. And then the pandemic hit. Yeah. And so I haven't really had to be out a lot.
Well, how has it been for you? Because, now that the pandemic is quote unquote over, in other words, everyone is going out, even though there is still COVID running around.
Pretending it's over. It's fine.
But there's a bunch of these events for the schools that people get together for that always involve alcohol. And so I get doubly anxious, because going out to see, local moms, and dads, and just people that are in your town, and there's always that pressure of keeping up with the Joneses. On top of it, for me, is a lot of them were my customers. Right. And it's that, like, how have you been? I haven't seen you. And they're drinking, and it's just like an added level of stress. But I'm sure you've had to go to some of these things.
Not really.
Really? How do you avoid these things?
We're just not that social, We're a little older, our kids are a little older.
Yeah, that's true.
And
we're with Max.
None of my kids play sports, so that's like a thing that we don't have to engage with.
That's right. Yeah, because we have those, it's this game and that practice, and then there's the end of the year party, and
so I do have Boy Scouts, which I'm actually blowing off right now to do this podcast.
Thank you.
And I don't mind going to Boy Scouts. I will say this though, and I meant this is part of one of the things I wanted to bring up. Last week, I went to the scout meeting. They're always on Tuesday nights. And one of the other assistant scoutmasters showed up late, and he was absolutely obliterated drunk.
No way.
Yes.
At just a regular scout meeting?
At a regular scout meeting.
Wow.
Now, this guy is an ex-cop, and he works at a gun store.
That guy?
Yes.
Wow.
And he was noticeably intoxicated. And so, like, when the scoutmaster was making an announcement, he kind of butted in and said something, and the guy was like kind of shushing him and stuff.
Jesus.
And then, he smelled like booze, and stuff. And this guy is always angling to go out drinking. Like after every scout meeting, like when we were in Cub Scouts, when I was still drinking, I would go out with him and we would drink.
Yeah.
But now, like every Tuesday night, he's like, hey, I'm just going out to the bar, Dell's, this.
Do they
that.
go out after?
No, but because he keeps trying to, but everybody else is kind of like, yeah, it's Tuesday night, man. I got to work in the morning and stuff.
Oh man.
But so I'm not saying this guy's got a problem. I don't know.
Boy, it doesn't.
I know he definitely likes to drink, and maybe he was at a thing or something, and then he just sort of rolled into the scout meeting afterwards. I don't know. I mean,
my thought on it is he knows he's going to be basically in charge of children.
Well, yeah.
Right, and he can't stop himself from drinking. Like, there's no event, even if you're a normally drinking person. There's nothing that should force you to become inebriated before you have something like that,
right?
Except for if you're an alcoholic.
I'll say, before the pack meetings with my other son, I used to maybe grab a couple glasses of wine with dinner, and before I went over there, didn't think anything of it.
I don't. You weren't like obliterated,
no.
But even a couple glasses of wine. I mean, it's become so normalized. We think, it's just a couple of glasses of wine,
right?
I mean, I know for a fact now that I've been sober for 4.5 years, one glass of wine does alter
absolutely
the way you are. You're in charge of children,
100%. I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't do it today.
Yeah, it's just.
But it was normal to me then.
Yeah.
But now I worry, like, is this guy going to drive kids to camp?
Sure.
And stuff like, do I need to, should I do something about this? Like,
maybe you should talk to his friend, the other scoutmaster, and just mention that you're concerned. And, I would put it like, hey, what did you think about the other night? And do you think he's got a problem? And maybe he shouldn't, just out of safety concerns, Not because you're morally like against the guy.
No,
drinking,
I mean,
I
I like the guy a lot, and the fact that he's from a very different not socioeconomic, different political background than myself, but I get along with everybody. Politics doesn't really matter to me
because you're a people pleaser, like me.
Oh, right. That's probably.
So. Hey, is Dimitri graduating high school?
Yes, he had his last day of school on Monday. And I came home because I was out running an errand, and he was sitting on the back deck smoking a cigar.
The kid's amazing.
And I was like, I just looked at him, and I was like, well, I guess, now's a good time for that. You know?
And he said, Dad, you told me not to smoke in my room.
That came up.
Did he use that? Yeah. I'm outside.
You know what? It's fine.
He's 18, right?
I actually sat with him, and we had a talk.
He didn't have a cigar? He didn't light you one?
He didn't light me one. I find cigars to be disgusting.
Yeah, they're pretty nasty.
And I was like, where'd you get that? And he's like, it was the same place that got busted for the THC and Syosset. And I was like, oh, okay.
Nice.
I get it. And then he proceeded to tell me that he doesn't smoke pot anymore because it was making him really paranoid, and it was too strong, and it makes kids stupid, and he's, and all this. And I was like, well, I'm really glad to hear that, because any of you guys that have been listening to this podcast for a while know, that when we started, I was having all kinds of problems with him, and the drugs and everything. And he seems to have evolved out of that. He says, I don't even like to really drink at all. He's like, the beer is disgusting. And he's like, the only, and if I have a couple of beers, I get a really bad pain in my esophagus,
It's acid reflux, man.
Yeah. And he's like, the only alcohol I could ever think would, be good to drink would be wine. And he's really only into that because it's like a Western, civilized. He's feeling his way,
Sure.
But
he's smart enough he's a smart kid, and it's great to hear that when a kid who's intelligent and is moving, can come to those realizations on his own.
Yeah.
And kids like him and kids like my son Noah, I think are cut from the same cloth in that you can't really tell them anything.
No, you can't.
But they do hear you, and that's what I've come to learn is. I'll tell Noah, what I think he should be doing and why, and I do it calmly. And he may immediately do the opposite, and I won't say anything, and then he will come to his own, I just hope he doesn't get hurt too bad before he figures it out for himself, because that's what some kids need. Some people need that.
Yeah, I think, a lot of alcoholics and addicts are really just big kids and, emotionally, fixated in an earlier time, perhaps. And, maybe getting in someone's face and yelling at them and telling them just stop what they're doing is completely ineffective, because it certainly doesn't work with teenagers.
No. No. And so, and I think that that's a great point. It's something I've been thinking about a lot since we started this podcast. And, you know, I've examined the way I feel today, and I think to myself, how is it that I'm able to function in an extremely stressful life? You know, it's a beautiful life, and I'm very lucky, but it's also a lot of stress.
Right.
Why don't I wake up craving alcohol? Why haven't I started to try, want to drink? And then I look back at myself before when I would, and I feel like a lot of it feels like maturity. And I know people don't want to hear that who are struggling with drinking, because then they'll say, oh, you're just saying I'm immature. Speaking for myself, and it may apply to others, but for me, I feel like it really is some maturity. I feel like I didn't become a man even till I was sober a couple of years, internally, just maturity-wise.
Yeah, I think there's different levels of maturity, because you can be mature in your career, and you can be mature in certain aspects of your life. And then, I think of alcohol as sort of like an Ouroboros, like it continuously devours itself and you. And,
the Ouroboros being the snake.
The snake that eats its tail. Yeah.
See, I know things.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I know what you mean, about maturity. Like, it's funny, like, because you're able to just deconstruct things, you can think clearly when you're not like yo-yoing back and forth between being drunk and hungover. And,
and your my impulses haven't taken over my brain anymore.
Yeah, and you have so much extra space up there to think, because you're not thinking about like, 5 o'clock, I got to stop here, I got to get the wine, I got to the whole internal dialogue, all that's gone.
Yeah,
it's like you're at one with everything in the universe.
One with the universe.
At least until you have to do the dishes. But, yeah. So,
did your kids? I wanted to ask you this, because this actually came up, I think, when we were at dinner, talking about our kids listening to the podcast. I thought this was an interesting thing to discuss, because, my son. When I first started this podcast, I was extremely paranoid about anybody knowing, especially him. I wanted to protect him from this nasty truth about myself. And as I went along, and I just feel like it's such a good thing. Not the fact that I was addicted to drugs and nearly ruined my life, but where we've come from there, I feel like is so beautiful and so instructive. And I don't really want him to go through and listen to it. My wife is very against that, but I don't have that feeling like, oh no, what if he hears it? I'm kind of like, when he does hear it, maybe he'll be ready, and maybe this will be something that will help to understand me and himself better.
Yeah, I don't think either one of our kids have the emotional maturity right now to sit down and get anything out of this, though.
No.
And Benjamin came to me the other day, and I was talking to him about, because we were talking about, I said, listen, you got to fire up your YouTube channel again. You got to make some more videos. Don't be a content consumer, be a content producer, because, you want to be the one pushing your content out to other people.
Yes.
You don't want it the other way around.
I like that.
And I said, Nat and I have, 100 and 1,000, this, that. And, and I again reiterated that we have a podcast that we talk about how people can recover from using too much alcohol and drugs. Yep. And he's like, do you help people, Daddy? And I said, I don't know. I said, I sit here and I talk, and people write me letters and tell me that this is helpful to them, and it's immensely gratifying to hear that. And I said, and I explained that to him, and he's like, well, can I listen to the podcast? Can I be on the podcast? And I said,
Noah wants to be on too.
I said, yeah. I said, you just find it I think you'd find it very boring right now.
Yeah, that's how I couch. And I'm like, it's, Dad's talking about not drinking, Do you talk about me? I'm like, yeah, you come up, but it's not like,
right.
It's not, you wouldn't get it. It's not that interesting to children.
Yeah. And I could see putting him and Noah on for a couple of minutes as a goof or something. If that will scratch the itch for them, then why not,
But then they'd have to listen to it to hear themselves.
Yeah. And that would have to be an episode about, going to the zoo or something, something completely benign.
We should put it off as long as possible, but I no longer have that dread that one day my son may know.
No,
X, Y, and Z.
But your wife, on the other hand, we were sitting at dinner the other night, and she's like, Aaron and I have not been on the podcast yet. And both of us kind of looked at each other out of the corner of our eyes, and we're like, Yeah, it's not going to change anytime soon.
We got to do a wives episode.
No, we should have them on, right?
We've just talked about them so much.
Honestly, like they said, your wife was saying some very helpful stuff at dinner the other night about how to keep the thing going and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm always picking Erin's brain, and she's very good about.
Well, they do listen.
She also gives me a reality check sometime when I start to get like a little too big for my.
Too big.
Yeah.
But they do like it, and I think it's cool that they listen to it. I hope my wife, when she listens to it, she gets a better idea, because sometimes it's hard when you've been married for 16 years and you've been dating 18 years. When you're talking to someone after that long, sometimes you don't hear them.
Yes,
and that goes both ways.
Sure.
So maybe by her listening to these podcasts, she's getting to know who I've become. Because I'm not that person, that she threw out of the house and, so many times because I was, doing the wrong thing. Like, that's not me anymore. And maybe this helps her, to see that.
Yeah.
I don't know. She says it's funny, too. That's what I like. I like to hear that I'm funny.
And we have our wives to thank for bringing us together initially.
That's true. That's true. The wives brought us together.
Yes. And we're going to celebrate that by going to yet another Yes concert.
Yes.
In July?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, again. I mean, some of you may know one of our first dates. Long before we got sober, long before the podcast, we went to see Yes at the Tilla Center. And is it happening again?
It's happening at the Paramount, and it's John Anderson, who's the lead singer for our classic Yes.
He's the one I like.
He's touring with a group of kids from like the School of Rock or something.
Which should be really, really interesting. I'm really looking forward
to it. The videos are pretty cool. So
that's going to be cool.
Nerd alert. It's the 50th anniversary of the Close to the Edge album, so they're going to be playing that in its entirety as well as other select
I'm not sure I'm that familiar with that one. I'm going to have to listen to it.
Make sure you give that a listen.
Closer to the Edge.
A listen. Yeah, Bill Bruford was the drummer on that. King Crimson. Bill
yes.
Anyway.
No pun intended. And
there was a pun in there?
Yes, I said yes.
Oh, yes.
Talking about the Yes Band. It's very easy pun to accidentally.
So, hey, you no longer have to go to Huntington every Saturday morning, do you? Because Noah has graduated his initial foray into acting class.
Yeah,
right?
so if you don't know out there, my oldest son Noah is a little different kind of kid. He's completely rejected sports of any kind. He's really into like video games and video editing, and now I've got him into D&D. And so in an attempt to get him in something he's interested in that still has a component of working with other kids, having like a coach, I thought, let's try acting. And we just happened to find this really cool little acting school in a neighboring town. And this was about 7 or 8 weeks ago he started it, and it was the best thing I think one of the best things that we've ever did for him. And he's really enjoying it. Because I used to be in plays and musicals and things in college and high school. And so it's near and dear to my heart. So it's just really heartwarming to be able to, work on like a scene, like lines with him and get him to memorize these things.
Yeah.
And, kind of giving him some of the coaching that I got. And then to watch him, because on Saturday, they performed this, it was just like a short scene. It was only like 4 pages of dialogue, but he memorized it.
Wow.
And they performed it in front of, other parents. It wasn't like a big show. But I was just so proud of him, and it was such a cool moment. And I think he's really enjoying it.
It's imagine getting them to memorize stuff like that for school. It's just
that's the amazing thing. The fact doing this acting school, and on another note, which I won't go too far into because we're getting long here, D&D, which is Dungeons and Dragons, I've gotten him into. It's involving a lot of reading on his part, and the acting, it involves reading. Now he has ADHD or ADD, and has a lot of trouble reading for school. But for the acting, once he's really focused on something he likes, he's reading like crazy. We went to the board game cafe to work on this D&D stuff with one of the expert nerds there. Noah didn't look at his phone for 3 hours.
Yeah,
he was sitting there with dice,
intense.
a pencil, and paper.
Yeah.
He was reading. He was like looking things up in the index, and I'm like, "This is it. I think we hit the nail on the head right here."
Yeah.
And that's been really great. Yeah, the acting schools. He wants to do acting camp, and
that's great, man. I'm glad you finished wandering around in the wilderness with him and kind of got some focus, because it's tough with these kids. You never know. I'm working with Ben, and I can't really. I need to unlock his thing, and I'm trying.
I mean, he's got the Cub, but you kept Ben in Cub Scouts or Boy Scouts.
I don't know if that's really his thing, though. You know? I need him to. I want him to feel passionate about something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
To me, that's important.
I want to see passion, and Noah is starting to find it, and conversely, his little brother Max now is like sports kid. Well,
that's great.
And he's very short. Both of my children are on the low end of how tall kids are supposed to be, and so Max is very cute and very short, and he loves basketball.
Hey, why not?
And so he was doing baseball and soccer, and he's in the second grade, and he was saying how much he didn't want to do baseball anymore. He just wanted to focus on soccer and basketball.
Point guard.
And I'm like, oh, I said, Max, that's great, and I'm so happy, that you like basketball, but I don't think, the Knicks are going to be a place you're going to end up, but maybe the...
don't crush his dreams.
I said, maybe the team on the, the JCC, YMCA team, you'd have a chance. But I think it's great that he's passionate about something that, maybe he won't be the greatest at, but that's not what matters.
No, it's not what matters. There's no such thing as bad art.
No.
There's no such thing as bad sport.
Bad sport. So anyway, things have been going well. We've missed you guys a lot. I haven't been taking notes like I used to, but I think we have gotten to the end.
Yeah, I think we need to drift on over to our main topic.
Right.
We should have music for the main topic.
That's a good idea. How about you put it in right here? That's Grant's music.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I got to repurpose the music, though.
Yeah.
You want to do... here's one for the main topic.
Okay, main topic.
I got to use that one, too. I don't know. It's
Drinkers Like Me by Adrian Chiles.
This is a toilet...
Flushing
from
endlessly.
Before water conservation, right? That was clearly a 5-gallon flush.
That was a big flush.
Yeah.
That's when you didn't have the streaks.
Okay.
My name's Adrian Chiles, and I'm not an alcoholic. At least I don't think I am.
That's pretty good.
Right? Okay.
So, So, great little documentary, BBC documentary called Drinkers Like Me, right? And it's put out by this guy, Adrian Chiles.
Yeah.
Who is Adrian Chiles?
I don't know.
He's 54 years old, so he's my age. He looked older.
Senior citizen.
Frankly, don't you think?
Yeah.
Didn't he look older?
He does. Definitely older than you. It's the white hair.
No, when you drink as much as he does.
Yeah. Which is a lot.
So he's maybe the friends from across the pond are familiar with him. I had never really heard of him before, but he's a TV radio presenter. He works for BBC Radio 5 Live. He previously hosted something called The One Show and Daybreak with Christine Lampard. This is not relevant, I guess. He also he was like a football commentator, and by that I mean soccer because so he the whole documentary is about him, how much he drinks, and whether or not he should quit or cut down on drinking.
Yeah,
and I found out a very interesting fact about him.
Yeah,
that when he was a child, you know how my theory is that drinking is trauma related, and I'm like, where's this guy's trauma?
Well, his dad was a drinker.
Yeah, okay, but
what's the trauma?
Ready for the trauma? He fell off his bike when he was a kid and had to be rushed to the hospital because his penis was partially severed.
What?
And he was 11 years old.
Holy shit.
And it was during the Arsenal Ipswich final in 1978, and he fell off his bike. And he said, I don't know how to put this delicately, but I partially severed my boy head, and I had to have it sewn back on.
Oh, God.
Yes.
Why?
He didn't mention that in the movie, did he?
Lorena Bobbitt be praised.
Well, this was self-inflicted wound, apparently. Anyway, so I found the trauma, I think.
Well, that's some serious trauma. I don't know if we can blame his drink. I think more likely is that England, amongst like everywhere else, has a very heavy drinking culture. From what I know,
yes.
From any time I watched one of these, and there's another great documentary like this. I can't remember the name of it, but I've seen, shows, produced by BBC, and they always talk about how drinking is like very pervasive in like every aspect of their culture and how hard it is to get away from.
Unlike America, where nobody drinks here at all.
Well, don't we have more Puritan like teetotalers from the days?
Do we?
I thought so. No, would the Baptists not drink? My grandmother was a Baptist, and they didn't drink or dance. And isn't there more of that in the Bible Belt?
So Adrian Chiles lives in London, right? And I assume the drinking in a big city like London sort of mirrors the drinking in a big city like New York. So when I was a lawyer in New York for years, I mean, that's all anybody ever did. Like every night, you'd go out to the pub or the bar or whatever you want to call it. And in fact, I went to a lot of English pubs in New York because I just liked the company. Maybe because everybody in there drank a lot, but I don't know. It's an interesting documentary. You can find it on YouTube, the whole thing. And Childs kind of explores his own drinking habits and asks the question why so many people don't consider themselves alcoholics despite the fact that they rely on drinking or they drink regularly. And he starts keeping track of how much he's drinking and realizes that his own intake is way over the limit. And then he goes into his own history with alcohol. But the recommended alcohol limit in Great Britain is 14 units a week.
Right.
Now, what is a unit, one might ask? So the rough equivalent to 14 units of alcohol is 6 pints of beer, 7 shots, or a bottle and a half of wine a week. That's 14 units.
14.
None of those things seem equivalent, but for example, like 7 doubles is equivalent to 6 pints of beer. 7 doubles of whiskey. Like I don't get that. But anyway,
7 doubles would be 14 drinks.
14 drinks, but only 14 units.
Right.
So an ounce, because a pint. Okay, I get it. A unit is 12 ounces of beer. Pints are 16 ounces of beer.
Oh,
therefore,
I see.
Right? So anyway, Chiles, in contrast, was putting away about 100 units, sometimes a day, and definitely more than, or 16 units a day, and over 100 a week.
Yeah, it was per week, I think he was saying, because he was, but he kept saying that he didn't feel like an alcoholic, and this is why he was I don't know what got him starting to think about this. I think maybe I missed where he
probably because he was hungover half of his life and miserable.
And he started to think, and he said something like, "There's drinking and there's drinking." His friends would say so. Like, there's an acceptable level of drinking too much. And over the line, they call it the dark side.
Yes. And do you know when they were having that conversation? They were having it at 10 o'clock in the morning when they were like 4 pints in on the day before they were going to see a soccer game.
Well, look, it was a 10 o'clock kickoff for their soccer game. Mm-hmm. So he was saying like, well, the soccer game, same thing with football. And in America, you have like a 1 o'clock Jets game or something.
Yeah.
We would start drinking. You go to your friend's house, maybe lunchtime, 10, 11 o'clock. And it makes sense to you at the moment that you're going to start drinking because the game starts early, and that's okay. And he starts to question that.
Well, he should question that because when you're 4 pints in at 10 o'clock in the morning, and then you go to the game and you have more pints, and then when you get home you drink, and then you go out after that, and I'm just like exhausted watching this guy's like day, and he claims that he never gets drunk, and I'm like, that's impossible. It's impossible, or you're so much of an alcoholic. Well, okay. Here's my big disconnect with this whole documentary and the whole way I think that even the question he's posing is ridiculous. Yeah. Is he seems really hung up on the on what he thinks the definition of the word alcoholic is.
Right.
As somebody with the paper bag in the gutter.
Right.
There's drinking and there's drinking, and I'm not one. I don't go. And the other one was like, what did she say? She doesn't go out, and she's not a vomiter or vobber or something. There's some English word for throwing up all the time. And that seems to be where they draw the line. Yeah. But meanwhile, he goes to the doctor and gets a full workup to see how much the alcohol has been affecting him, this amazing amount of alcohol that he drinks. And his blood work is entirely normal. Right. So he thinks, great, there's nothing wrong with me. But then he's like, you know what, maybe I need to go and see the condition of my liver, because the doctor tells him that blood tests often don't show anything, and you could still have scarring, you could still have cirrhosis.
Yeah.
Cirrhosis of the liver. I dub thee cirrhosis. Of the liver.
Cirrhosis.
So he goes and he gets a scan.
Right.
And the scan shows significant scarring on the liver. And he's clearly doing damage to himself. Right. So whether or not, and the doctor tells him this really salient figure, he says, 30% of the people that show up with liver failure in the liver ward do not meet the textbook definition of what an alcoholic is.
Right. And another good point the doctor makes is he's seen people quit drinking later on in life, and that you can always, it's never too late or something. I think you can always stop drinking and improve your health.
The liver grows back. It's a resilient organ. Thank God.
Thank God for that. And so that's a great point. But yeah, you see during this documentary him trying to find out, should I stop drinking or should I keep drinking? And like he was asking that one gentleman who had 30 years and he's kind of like, do you think I should stop drinking? And the guy actually has a surprising answer.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of bullshit.
Yeah, it was.
Because it seems like he went out and he found a lot of people who told him that he didn't need to stop drinking. He's not really an alcoholic.
I couldn't believe that.
And I'm like, this is coming out of the people in the Smart Recovery meeting are all like, nah, and then his friend who's been sober 30 years is going, have a pint. You want a pint. And I'm like, where did he find these fucking people? Like 30 years sober, and he's telling the guy to go out drinking, and he knows that he drinks like a fish every night.
Yeah, like I get it that the attitude of the people who he was talking to is they weren't trying to be like proselytizing. They weren't trying to be telling people what they should and shouldn't do, but to a fault.
Just like we were talking about a few minutes ago. Yeah. You can't tell people. You got to show them, right?
You can take a horse to water, but you can't make him not drink.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he found all of these people who were basically not trying to offend him or were too, they didn't want to say, yes, stop drinking, because I think they know that won't do anything for him, or they think that. So they're trying to harm reductionize him.
Yeah, I get. Right. I guess so.
Right? They just want him to start to reduce because maybe they've already decided, rightly or wrongly, that this guy isn't going to stop drinking. So maybe if we can start
But that's silly, right? I mean, because you can always stop drinking, right? But the thing that really kind of fucked me up, like, it was listening to his friend of 30 years, like, tell him, yeah, my social life basically never recovered.
Yeah.
I was like,
what the
dude,
fuck?
What are you doing? Do you want to help your friend?
And then he said he envied him.
He envied him. Yeah.
I envy your ability to drink and have fun, mate. And
I think that's the wrong.
It's the wrong
type
dialect.
Of British accent.
Yeah, well, that was like southern London, or maybe the north.
I mean, I'm sure our British listeners will correct us.
Guys, keep us up to date on the north and the south of London.
But I mean, that was like, that really was sort of disappointing. And one thing they did let it slip out was the Mr. 30-year sober quit on his own.
Yeah.
From a fairly serious, alcoholist. That guy was definitely an alcoholic. He had the DTs. He saw the spiders on the ceiling and all that kind of stuff.
I thought he was saying he didn't see.
No, he was saying he did, and that's why he had to stop.
So his thing was like, if you're not seeing spiders on the ceiling,
have a pint.
Yeah, have a pint, mate.
But Chiles is like, the idea of not drinking, like he can't even get his head around it. So he goes out and he interviews a whole bunch of people who are drinking. Like he has another friend who is an alcoholic and stopped drinking, but his daughter was what did he call her? Like she's like a nasty binge drinker or something about his daughter. I forget the word he used.
The British have a great word for that, I'm sure.
Yeah. So they interviewed her, and she was all like, she had some trauma. She had like breast cancer and the stuff, and that's why she said she drank. And then they went and visited his friend who was clearly an alcoholic. I mean, right.
How dare you?
I've railed against the use of that term
a lot.
Right. And I don't believe, and I believe that the use of that term in this documentary is a barrier for Mr. Chiles to really sort of get a handle on whether or not he has a drinking problem.
But you see how important words are. You're always telling me words don't matter. These definitions, the way we say.
No, I've said that
didn't we get in this debate about, like, I wanted to say recovered or recovered, and you're like, well, what's the difference?
I mean, I'm not making a blanket statement about the value of words. I mean, I'm a lawyer. I mean,
I was about to say,
it's my stock and trade are words.
But I think it helps us to use a word like alcoholic, which is why we keep going to it, not just because they use it a lot, but because it identifies what we would call someone with a problem stopping drinking.
No, but I disagree. I don't think you should use the word alcoholic, because I think the word alcoholic is what's causing all the problems here. I think
interesting.
I think if they had used the term, if he had explored whether he had an alcohol use disorder, which is that came up briefly when he was talking to the doctor, who said we don't like to use that word anymore because it's not descriptive enough. And then that was it. And then it was just, I'm not an alcoholic because I'm not like this, and that whole comparison thing, I think was something that got in the way of him really. I mean, because listen, if you're drinking 16 units of alcohol a night, you have an alcohol problem. I don't know if you're an alcoholic, whatever the fuck that means, but you have an alcohol problem. You have a dysfunctional relationship with alcohol. How about that?
But you've got to prove to them what's dysfunctional about it. If you can't prove to them that it's really destroying their liver and they'll die young,
maybe they don't care.
Right. Yeah, they don't care about that, and maybe they keep their job. They have a happy-ish, their life is fine.
But
so
that's
why
the thing.
Quit?
He's miserable. He's on medication for depression.
Right.
He's on medication for anxiety. He's starting to go to a therapist.
He's like, maybe it's the alcohol.
Right. And the therapist, by the way, was great, I thought. He looked a little strange, but he had some real wise things to say about, maybe the issue is not the drinking. Maybe the issue is that you are not happy with yourself.
Yes, I love that. And when he said that, it really, and it's the way I think. When I was listening to him say those things, he was saying, you have to look at the reason you're drinking. And this is something we talk about and we've studied, and it's a real eye-opener when you look at what is it that you're trying to, like, it's a handrail, I think he said.
Yes.
You're using it like, what is it about drinking that allows you to socialize? And what are you afraid of by not drinking? And, and that is the question I think it's important to ask ourselves. If you find that you think, if I stop drinking, how am I going to go out with my friends? Then you have to say, wow. Why do I need a drink to enjoy time with friends?
Well, and he brings that up a couple times. He said that was one of his biggest questions is, why can I not stand out and look up at the beautiful day and a sunset and not experience it with as much joy as I can if I've had a couple of pints?
Right. So what is it about you that you don't like? What is it that you're uncomfortable with? And the point of a lot of therapy is to learn how to love yourself, because until you can do that, this is what my therapist would tell me. We have to get Nat to love Nat, and I used to laugh at them, and then I would cry, and then I would fall off the chair sobbing, and then they'd say your hour is up, and that was that, and I go,
$100, please.
Right, but it occurred to me once I finally realized that in fact I did love myself, the healing could begin, and then I didn't need that drink to, get this person, myself, who I hated just through the day. I started doing better things for myself. I started wanting to do the right thing because I knew it felt good. And I didn't, and less I was going to that drink or going to the drug.
So what do you have to say to this? Adrian Chiles doesn't want to stop drinking. He's perfectly happy cutting down. He goes to something called the Club Soda party or Club Soda group or something, soda water. I don't know. And, gets all these free, like, non-alcoholic beers and stuff. And he decides that what he needs to do is not to quit drinking. What he needs to do is moderation.
Yeah, and
he needs to cut down. And, the documentary gave kind of short shrift to the success or failure of him in that area. Like, towards the end, like, he appears to have cut down,
right?
But we don't really know, right? I mean, he's very sort of loosey-goosey on what cutting down even means. I mean, maybe cutting down for Adrian Chiles would be like full-on alcohol abuse to me. I mean, I don't know if you're drinking 16 units a day and you go down to like 6. Is that...
Yeah, I mean, and it depends on when and why you're drinking. That's what's more important is maybe why and like when. Like if you're moderately drinking at 8 a.m., 2 drinks before work, like is that different than, you come home and have 2 drinks?
Well, he seems to think so because for him, I mean... there's rationalization and denial all over this documentary. Like the artificial lines that are drawn to determine what is alcoholism and what isn't are just so specious. I mean, for him, it's like, yes, drinking in the morning is clearly a sign of alcoholism.
I just called it breakfast.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I've been stingy with those lately.
Yes, I know.
There haven't been too many good jokes.
I'm sorry.
I don't know what to tell you.
But, what are these definitions?
I mean, that was one of them. And then, I guess interference with your work or whatever. Because like he says, like, I drink, Fridays and Saturdays and, and then Wednesday, why not? Like he couldn't, because that's like his hobby is drinking, right? And then, but he's like, Thursday I'm on the air, so I don't drink on Thursdays.
So he can do it.
He can do it. But I bet you he's an irritable son of a bitch on Thursdays.
Yeah. And so,
I know I would have been.
Well, it's really hard too, because he's probably looking at, I have 76 units a week or something. He goes, and maybe he looks at his friends who seem to have their lives together. And I did this too when I was thinking about quitting. And you say, see, they can enjoy 1 or 2 drinks, but who knows what they were really drinking. But
right.
And I would say that to myself. And then my goal then would be to get to where they were. And if I could just do that, but I never could. I could never get down to moderate drinking. But what is moderate drinking? Talking about this just made me think back. I went back in time into my mind to when I thought I was drinking moderately, and maybe I'll spin the scenario at you and you can tell me.
Spin it. So
I don't know how long ago this was, maybe 10 years, because I've been going back to college for a long time. And I got to a point where I had been sober like a couple of months, just white knuckling it. And then I had slowly, started to pick up these, I think it was some kind of seltzery type of drink. And I got to a point where as I was driving to the class I was going to,
yes,
I would pick up, I think it was a 12-pack. And I would basically, down about 6 of them before class, and then 6 on the way home. And then I would say to myself, that's all I had for the day. And I would do it each time. But, on off days, I would have to do it too. But I didn't get particularly wrecked. And I thought, ultimately I got back into the bad stuff. But, doing that, I mean, I'm sure certainly was doing damage, but it felt like I was managing my life on that amount of alcohol. But I would say that that's pretty bad because, for one, I was driving, and 2, that's just a lot of alcohol to drink for pretty much no reason, just to assuage some of my anxiety, probably.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything moderate about that.
Would you call me an alcoholic?
I don't know. I don't think so. I wouldn't. I would say you have an alcohol use disorder.
I see. So,
like
all right.
Adrian Chiles has an alcohol use disorder.
All right, so you just prefer alcohol use disorder because it's more clinical?
Because it's broader. Because when you think that the term alcoholic is it's one end of that spectrum.
Right.
It's the most severe end of the spectrum. And because a guy like Adrian Chiles can put out a documentary in England, and all of a sudden everybody who probably could benefit from stopping drinking is thinking, I don't really need to stop drinking.
Right.
I'm not an alcoholic. Adrian Chiles drinks 100 units of booze a week, and he's not an alcoholic.
Right.
So I only drink 85. So I'm practically, a health and fitness freak.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, so I don't know where to go with this, and maybe that's where we should, what do we do with it? What does he do next?
Well, what does he do next? Yeah. Do you want to know what he did?
I want to know.
I'm going to tell you.
Tell me now.
He wrote a book.
What?
It's coming out in end of this month.
He wrote it with alcohol use disorder?
His book is called, Adrian Chiles' book is called The Good Drinker, How I Learned to Love Drinking Less by broadcaster and columnist Adrian Chiles.
Yeah.
So now he's taking this message of moderation to the masses. The blurb from his publisher says, so just digest this for a minute. Adrian's book is an eye-opener. It's for all of us. about 20% of the population who drink more than we should, but don't think we have a problem.
More than we should.
We wake up in our own beds. We don't get into fights.
Check.
Right? But drink is all too much of a constant in our social lives. Adrian loves drinking and doesn't want to stop. Most of us feel like that. And his book will help set many of us on the path to some kind of moderation. Kind. Not even like right?
Yeah. Casting a wide net.
Yes. And it's pure Chiles, full of good sense, companionable, and never remotely preachy. It's a book people will keep reading for many years as they attempt to moderate their drinking problems. It was inspired by his documentary Drinkers Like Me. In his book, he sets out around Britain to discover the pleasures of drinking in moderation. Now, what is that? He's just going around drinking in moderation in various places and discovering how interesting that is?
Yeah. It's a bad message.
The publisher wrote, there's an awful lot of advice out there on how to quit booze completely. If you just want to drink a bit less, the pickings are slim. I mean, is there a reason for that, maybe? Yet, while the alcohol industry depends on a minority of problem drinkers, the majority really do drink well below the recommended weekly alcohol limit. Chiles commented, this book definitely isn't some covert guide to knocking drinking on the head completely.
No way.
Neither is it a classic self-help book. It might amount to the same thing, but it's really just a distillation, if you'll pardon the pun, of the many things I've learned about drinking since I made a TV documentary on the subject. And what I've learned, you'll be shocked to read, is that it's complicated.
Yes, we're all very
I guess you could complicate it, but it's really not that complicated.
Well, Adrian, we are all shocked and amused.
I wish him well, really. I mean, he seems like a really funny guy, nice.
A nice Falstaff character to follow around and watch fall down.
Anyway, you can get the documentary on YouTube. It's free. It's about an hour, so it won't overly tax your life.
Yeah, some of the dialect is difficult to understand, so use subtitles
if you're American. We make fun of Americans, or people make fun of Americans because we don't speak. We're not bilingual. We don't speak two languages, and I would argue that many of us don't even speak one.
That's right.
Certainly don't speak it very well.
Mastered one.
So and when the book comes out, I'm going to buy it because I want to read it and I want to see where this is going, Well, I'm going to be devil's advocate before we move on and say, you know what? Maybe this is exactly what the world needs. It might be.
Maybe this is that soft entrance into a world of completely stopping drinking. Maybe this will get people to start at least looking at the health hazards of drinking. And maybe this will actually get more people than would have initially actually stop and live a healthy, happy life. That was what we all want.
That would be great. But
so maybe he's doing a great thing.
Maybe. I mean, I want to like the guy. And honestly, by the end of the documentary and after doing some research, I really was starting to think to myself, shit, maybe I can't. Maybe that's possible for me. Like maybe so and that's what's fucked up about this, right? Because I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's possible for Adrian Chiles to moderate for any significant length of time.
Let me ask one last question. How is this the same or different from Drug Use for Grown-Ups by that guy?
I don't know that it's all that different. I think Dr. Carl Hart and Adrian Chiles could sit by the fire doing heroin together, or Chiles could throw back a couple pints. And
I think it's a similar.
Dr. Hart could do a little chipping when he's sitting there.
I think it's similar. It's this idea that you can responsibly, use a dangerous, harmful drug.
I don't care if Adrian Chiles wants to keep drinking. I don't. What I care about is Adrian Chiles is writing a book telling all these other people that this is like.
I love drinking.
At the beginning of the show, we listened to ourselves, to the Monksters, to probably just about anybody else who's ever had an alcohol problem who's tried to moderate and has found it to be an impossibility. And yet this guy is now writing a book to teach other people how to irresponsibly attempt moderation. That's my feeling about it.
Yeah, it may be irresponsible, but there may be some good. But the thing I worry about is just like what you said. You listen to this or you watch this documentary and you begin to question whether or not maybe you could have such a great time like they're having. And maybe you're missing out on this amazing social life.
Listen, I would like to go down to the pub and have a pint and hang out and do all that kind of thing, and
would you really though? Would it really be that?
No,
great?
because then then I played it along and I remembered how I felt the next morning and how Adrian Chiles probably feels every fucking morning of his life when he wakes up with a hangover.
I remember.
Which he didn't even discuss.
No.
Like you don't drink 16 drinks a night and wake up feeling fresh as a fucking daisy.
A constant, and let me just, for the listeners, if you don't know this from personal experience, drinking like that, which I did for a long time, it's a constant state of feeling ill.
Yes.
And when you drink, you don't feel better. You just feel a little different. Yeah. It's a little more manageable feeling, but really all of the time you are not yourself. You're not your best self, and your life will reflect it. And I know countless examples in my life, people who still continue to drink even though they don't want to and know it's bad. And for the best to just, guys, let's completely knock out the drinking out there. Put the plug in the jug already.
All it is you're taking liquid and you're pouring it down your throat. I mean, is it so hard to stop doing that?
Well, it was, wasn't it?
It was.
Okay.
All right.
Moving right along.
Oh, what's next?
Recovery in the news. Yeah! All right. Recovery in the news. Recovery in the news. I've waited a long time to do that.
It's been building up,
yes.
right? Okay. Today's story, monoclonal antibody treating COVID. Monoclonal antibody treating COVID may help addiction.
That is a mouthful.
It is, and there should be a comma there, but there is not.
Isn't that?
What the hell
Monte
was
Clonal,
that?
I was thinking of Sergeant Pettifor. Isn't that a musical?
That one's went right over.
You could do that with monoclonal antibody treating COVID may help addiction. Let's just cut this out.
Anywho.
We edit that horrible thing. Go on.
Anyway, this story was kind of all over the news, but the place I chose to pull the story from for the show was the khqa.com features website for some reason. Okay, so for nearly 2 decades, Nat, did you know that for 2 decades, researchers have been laying the groundwork to find out why certain medications commonly used to treat addiction work with some drugs but not others? That's a very poorly written sentence.
That was a mouthful.
What that means is, I think what they're saying is that some medications that they use to treat addiction will work with like heroin or alcohol, but maybe not with cocaine.
Right, like Vivitrol is like that.
Right. Now, a team of scientists says that it may be because drugs such as cocaine work differently than we thought in the brain.
No way.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah. Huh. It was the party drug of the decade when Aaron Lane got hooked on it, and even as newer drugs appeared to replace the demand for cocaine. And then there's a period. Like, who fucking wrote this? Therapies to fight everything from heroin to opioids didn't seem to work to help those drugs that Lane was addicted to. Holy shit. Okay, so he tried a lot of drugs, and he was a cocaine addict, this guy Lane.
Got it.
And the drugs that he used to treat his cocaine addiction didn't work. So
they have drugs to treat cocaine addiction?
I guess so.
Okay.
So anyway, Dr. Andrew Norman, a UC health researcher, is looking to create or get FDA approval for his treatment for cocaine addiction. They're looking to start human trials.
Human trials. Those are my favorites.
For an approach to treat cocaine addiction using monoclonal antibodies, which are specific antibodies used therapeutically these days for various things, including for treating COVID-19. You see, in early lab studies, his team has shown that cocaine is addictive not because it reinforces the traditional pleasure centers in the brain, such as what?
Such as alcohol?
No,
such as knocking on the table.
No, the dopamine.
Yes,
that's what I'm thinking of. But rather because it impacts a part of the brain linked to repetitive behavior. I found that to be very interesting.
Yeah, sure.
So when you start with cocaine, the drug takes over the repetitive behavior part of the brain, and it creates like a feedback loop where you're just doing the cocaine.
It's like the Ouroboros.
It's like the Ouroboros. It is like the Ouroboros. But I think it's actually probably a little bit of both, right? Because you wouldn't just keep doing it because it's a repetitive habit. Like I pick my nose, but I'm not going to sell my house for it.
Do it till you die.
Right.
Like the rat in Rat Park.
So anyway, the monoclonal antibody created by Norman's team binds to the cocaine and switches off the on-ramp and prevents the coke from entering the brain. So in that respect, I guess it works kind of like, what do you call it for alcohol?
Yes.
What's the drug for alcohol?
Vivitrol. Well, that's also for opioids.
What's the other drug?
Antabuse. Camprol.
What's the one that the Sinclair method?
That's naltrexone.
Naltrexone,
which is
Vivitrol. Right. Okay. Yeah.
I know too many drugs.
So the behavior gets stopped. They like break the chain of behavior with the monoclonal antibodies, and it could be a real game changer. It's too soon to know if it would work with drugs other than cocaine, but as soon as the FDA gives the okay, he's going to begin the human trials, and we'll see what happens.
Interesting. That reminds me of that study they always talk about where the rat, keeps hitting the lever to get more cocaine, and eventually he gives up going to his water bowl. He gives up going to his food, and he just hits the thing until he essentially dies. And it sounds like that.
I'm familiar.
Yeah, Rat Park.
Yeah.
But it sounds like that same kind of behavior they're talking about is that feedback loop of, and I felt that way myself.
Yeah, me
I kept
too.
doing the same thing.
Kept hitting the lever.
Bing, 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 until,
But you weren't living. But see, that's the thing that I don't really get. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's a discussion for another day. It's like the whole thing with Rat Park, right? Is if you give the rat human connection and other exciting things to do, it'll stop pressing the lever for cocaine. I don't really think that that's true, and I'd like to see that study replicated because, for me, I mean, the feedback loop with the coke, it was really, you could have put anything around me, it wouldn't have mattered. I could have had the most interesting thing in the world around me, and I'd still keep hitting the lever.
Yeah, that's true. I guess.
I mean, I'm not a rat, I guess.
But interestingly, that Vivitrol. I mean, and this happens all the time in drug studies. Like, for example, the drug Propecia used to keep my hair nice and thick. Initially, it was developed or indicated it was called Proscar, which is for prostate something. And then what they found is they would give this drug to people for their prostate, and their hair would grow back. And so then they had the FDA approve it for this alternative thing, but it also happened with Vivitrol, which was initially developed to curb your cravings for alcohol, and then they discovered later that not only does it do that, but it stops your opioid receptors from binding with heroin. So it's like they use it for both basically, but it's far less used for alcohol. I initially took it for heroin, and then later got back on it for my alcohol cravings.
Right.
But these drugs, so maybe it does sort of crystallize that fact that addiction to all things is all part of the same function of the brain or the dysfunction of the brain.
Yeah, sometimes I wonder about the wisdom of treating these things like individually, targeting them individually. But I mean, I think there's biological components and there's psychological components, and you have to address both of them at the same time, or you're not going to achieve the goal that you're looking for.
There's so many different people. There's so many different modalities, we need professionals and we need people who are educated on all of the differences and the wide spectrum of needs. But I still want to find where is the focus point where we can go out from and we can bring people to. I don't know.
It's somewhere where parallel lines meet in the distance.
Somewhere.
We're having, just to plug an upcoming episode, we have someone who reached out to us, a kind of connection through Grant, who is a vocal proponent of the Sinclair method. And
yes.
We covered the Sinclair method way back in the hazy mists of time when we reviewed the One Little Pill documentary.
Yeah, with
Claudia, Babylon 5.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think it's time that we revisit that and actually have a guest on who can who can speak to it. And this woman reached out to us, and I think that's going to be an interesting episode. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up in the next few weeks, along with possibly a return of Dave from Dopey.
Yeah, so I've been working closely with the Dopey podcast and Dave, and over the last maybe year. And Dave was on once, and I'm a big fan of the show. I think a lot of you out there are fans of the show, and Dave has agreed to actually come to Castle Grayskull. He's going to
come to my house and sit in my basement.
He initially said he would. We don't have to.
Should I make him tacos as well?
I think that would be awesome. I think it would be the coolest thing to get.
I can't serve him like brisket or anything though.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, he's an aficionado, but he would be psyched to do it. And on top of that, there is DopeyCon 3 coming up in New York City, October 1st. I'm not sure exactly where yet. I think they've picked out the theater, but I'm planning to be at DopeyCon 3. I'm looking forward. I know some of you out there will be there. I don't know if I'll have an official table. I haven't even talked to Dave about doing that, but I think it would be cool if we did a Monkster meetup maybe at DopeyCon in New York City. So let me know, guys, if you're planning on going, and we can find a place to... we'll meet in the men's bathroom at 8:30. Third stall from the left.
Okay. So we're done with recovery in the news?
I guess you are. Yeah, sure.
Yeah! I think we're both done with it, right?
Yeah.
Did you want to have anything else to say on monoclonal antibodies?
No, but I was really trying to figure out how to fit monoclonal antibodies into that song from the HMS Pinafore musical that I tried to do at the beginning.
Listen.
And it's not happening.
No.
It's just not happening.
If you come up with it during the week, I'll splice it in.
Damn it.
Okay.
All right.
Wait, what's next?
Week in Weird. Colombian influencer claims to speak alien language by Ryan Stacy.
Who the hell is Ryan Stacy?
He's a newcomer.
Is Tim Manel okay?
Tim Manel is on vacation.
Is he?
I don't know.
Was he taken up in a spacecraft?
He went to he's at rehab, and when he gets back, I'm just kidding. Tim is not. So, by Ryan Stacy, learning a new language is a great way to promote understanding and enhance your knowledge of the world, or even a distant galaxy. On a recent TV appearance, Maeve Walker.
Could be Mafe.
I can't even. Mafe Walker, an internet influencer and spiritual guide living in Mexico, reportedly claimed to have mastered the lingo of an extraterrestrial species, a feat that apparently goes much deeper than studying their vocabulary and grammar. At her appearance on a recent broadcast of Venga la Alegria that has since gone viral, a catchy name, Walker revealed that for her, she acts as a communication bridge with the otherworldly via maximum frequency waves that originate in her stellar galactic DNA and transmit through vibrational crystals. The live demonstration she provided for the show's hosts, a stream of startling, strange-sounding syllables, has generated some controversy online. Were you playing it?
I found a video of Mafe Walker
we're gonna have to post
pretending to speak in an alien language.
Oh, my gosh. We got to... with some viewers expressing their skepticism of Walker's incredible claims, but she maintains that her linguistic talent is genuine testament to her natural abilities as an interdimensional medium.
Of course. If you're an interdimensional medium, how can you do anything but speak in alien tongues?
I'm more of a large myself.
Is she Pentecostal, I wonder? Is that where this...
Yeah. I'm sorry there was no Bigfoot or Tim Banal in this week.
Yeah, that's kind of... What?
Colombian influencer claims to speak alien language.
I mean, that's a great headline.
It is.
Yeah, writes itself, I guess.
Week in Weird. Well, it about does it for today. And I just wanted to thank everybody out there for sticking with us during this recent time off.
Thank you.
And everybody stuck with us on Patreon, and we're so grateful.
We even added a couple
out there. Yeah, we added a couple. You know, if you're not on Patreon, we're still doing stuff on there, and I'm hoping that we've gotten our schedules to a point where we can really give this show the love and the attention that it really needs, and that we want to give it. So thank you guys so much. And that about does it for today. I know I had a great time. Did you?
Yes.
Thank you so much for listening. Visit us at middleagesrecovery.com.
Not yet.
Not yet. It's Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, YouTube, and Twitter. So tweet us at Twat You Twit. Support your favorite show. Drop a 5-star review. Join our private Facebook group. Buy a t-shirt or simply write and say hello. We love meeting new Monksters and chopping it up on the Facebook group. Join the Inner Sanctum as we've been pushing ad nauseum today at patreon.com, Recovering the Middle Ages, for a higher level of support. Free merch, bonus video episodes.
A level of higher support.
Chat with all of the Monksters on there. And finally, the best way to help the show is to share it with a friend. If you get something out of our little show, please share the love and help grow the RMA movement. And as we say, non proficiat perfectum.
Oh, that's profits, not perfection.
See you next time.
Stay fresh, cheese bags.
Be good.
Bye.
Bye.